Hello, world. My name is Marcus Jones. Welcome to episode 1 of a PowerPoint about for ISA 4220. In this series, I will cover PowerPoint presentations about different InfoSec services or features. And today we have a PowerPoint about the wide world of operating systems and firewalls. We'll begin with operating systems, or simply OS for short. An operating system is defined as the software that supports a computer's basic functions, such as scheduling tasks, executing applications, and controlling peripherals. Operating systems are the main software that users will interact with when using a computer. The operating system contains many important functions for users, and making sure that operating systems are properly functioning and properly secured are of the utmost importance. The operating systems that will be covered during this presentation are Windows Server 2019, which is the newest iteration of the Microsoft Server software, and also Linux distribution Ubuntu 18.04 LTS. The first operating system that I will cover is Microsoft Server 2019. Server 2019 is the most recent version of Microsoft's operating system line intended to boost the productivity of business organizations remotely. Microsoft Server 2019 may look similar in appearance to its known retail counterpart, but under the hood, Server 2019 is filled with features that are specific to the server operating system and would benefit the business needs of an organization more so than the original Windows operating system. Server 2019 is equipped with enterprise management software and tools that allow for system administrators to perform tasks essential to operation. One example of these enterprise management tools is having the server act as a domain controller. This gives the server the ability to perform any authentication requests within the Windows domain. Making the server a domain controller allows the administrator to use such tools as Active Directory. Active Directory can be used by administrators to manage permissions on more than one node on the server, and this is useful because it will allow an administrator to make changes on a network of computers at one time, adding convenience and also assuring that each computer on the network has received the same maintenance. One of the greatest benefits of Server 2019 is the hybrid cloud computing services that it provides. With the growth and development of the cloud, organizations are transitioning to more off-premises working solutions, and in this case, it's important that system administrators are able to complete tasks with the same ease and convenience whether they are on or off premises. Being able to use Server 2019 through the cloud as well as on-site is a large benefit to an organization. Administrators are able to complete vital tasks remotely, making sure that organizations can continue business without a hitch, whether in or out of the office. Hybrid cloud computing allows users to access and make changes to different system configurations such as firewall rules, user groups, services, and certificates. By allowing users to complete these tasks from a remote location, Server 2019 provides a convenience that many organizations would find helpful. And with the ever-changing state of the world, it's becoming very important to be able to continue business in the same fashion no matter what. Another feature of Server 2019 that lends itself to the operating system's push towards being of value as far as virtualization and cloud computing is Server 2019's hyper-converged infrastructure, or HCI. As traditional three-tier infrastructures comprised of service, network, and storage tiers become unable to handle the needs of modern organizations, there will be more of a shift to more modern and useful HCIs. An HCI includes virtualization software for the data center stack of storage, compute, and networking components, along with an advanced memory. And the physical infrastructure of three-tier systems are replaced by smaller and more convenient servers. These new ACIs are more agile than the older infrastructure model, making the working progress significantly easier and faster. Also, ACIs are easier to scale and grow in size due to the lower cost and smaller size of the servers, and therefore organizations can add as many servers as needed and easily remove them. The development of Server 2019's HCI gives administrators the ability to manage virtualized services on the network easier and without having to completely take down their system to make changes, giving them a true hybrid experience. As complex as operating systems are, it is extremely important to make sure that they are being properly protected. The process for properly securing an operating system is known as hardening and is a very important factor in successfully maintaining the operating system. For Server 2019, the hardening process should begin with the installation of the operating system. Ensuring that all patches and updates to the OS have been correctly installed and applied is vital, and failure to do so could leave the operating system vulnerable to attackers. Once the OS is installed, there are a few hardening practices that an administrator should implement in order to ensure safety. System admins should ensure that Windows Firewall is activated and configured to allow or block traffic in whatever way necessary to make sure only authorized ports are able to be accessed. Any guest or non-admin accounts should be configured to ensure least privilege, making sure that users are only allowed authorization necessary to their job-specific duties. Finally, Server 2019 administrators should configure system settings to make sure that they are secure as possible. The security configurations are solely based on what administrators or the security team prefers, and some changes may be more beneficial than others depending on the organization. An example of this type of configuration would be to set the local area network manager or LAN manager to only allow NTLM version 2 protocol, and to refuse the older LM and NTLM version 1 protocols. NTLM version 2 is the most recent authentication protocol, and is therefore more secure than the older ones, making it a safer choice. Decisions such as these are very important when taking steps to harden the Server 2019 operating system. While Linux operating systems may not be household names like their Windows and Apple counterparts, in the world of programming and information systems, Linux is a very popular choice due to its open source nature, networking capabilities, and administrative functions. Ubuntu 18.04 LTS is a Linux distribution or operating system and packs the features that users and system administrators alike enjoy in a traditional Linux operating system. Ubuntu is an open source operating system, meaning that a user can create, modify, and distribute source code using the operating system. This gives users and admins the ability to customize their experience and to test different code that may benefit their organization. An open source operating system will normally be more cost efficient than proprietary software, in which users will normally always have to pay, and in an enterprise environment, that cost can become an issue as an organization grows and is forced to scale their operation to a larger size. Also, open source operating systems are normally more agile and flexible than proprietary operating systems, meaning that Ubuntu has the advantage of open source development, which provides many different benefits such as being able to solve problems more than one way because there's not just one entity releasing patches or fixes for issues. There instead is an entire community that could potentially devise a fix to any issue that may arise, or a user could simply create a fix to their own issue. One of the most useful tools in Ubuntu is the command line. The command line can be used to enter commands and scripts that can do everything from disabling services, installing packets, or even browsing the web. In an enterprise environment, the command line really is able to shine when controlling system administration and networking. The command line is able to complete administrative tasks such as managing user permissions to control what privileges certain users have, and also creating or removing user profiles when needed. Along with the administrative tasks, the command line can also handle networking tasks such as opening or closing different ports depending on the preference of the organization, and also controlling network traffic with IP tables to ensure security. The Ubuntu command line does not have a GUI or graphical user interface, and it is important for a system administrator to understand and research the tasks that the command line is able to complete. Once the user has a firm grasp of how to use the command line, it is extremely powerful and can streamline the most tedious of administrative or networking tasks. Ubuntu 18.04, like many Linux distributions, is considered to be a secure operating system out of the box or upon download. And although Ubuntu comes with preset security features, there are still hardening tasks that can be done to secure your OS more than it already is. The first thing a system administrator should do to harden an Ubuntu server is to make sure that IP tables is properly configured. IP tables serves as the firewall system for Ubuntu and can be used to control network traffic. It is important to have IP tables correctly configured to ensure that network traffic going in and out of the server is properly monitored. For instance, an administrator could set IP tables to only allow incoming traffic to certain ports, and therefore will know to monitor those ports for suspicious incoming traffic. Another important hardening technique that administrators should follow is to make sure to manage all of the user accounts on the system. Ubuntu is different from Server 2019 in the sense that users can execute administrative or networking tasks using the command line, and therefore it is important that each account is properly managed. The root account on Linux is known as a super user and can execute any task on their server. There should be only one or very few super users with the ability to make these changes. Making sure that user accounts are properly configured is an important step of hardening Ubuntu. Doing so ensures that users are only performing actions that are permitted by an administrator. The risk of not properly securing user accounts could lead to unauthorized privilege escalation, which would allow users to elevate their access and potentially tamper with major system functions or services and potentially take over the operating system. Another hardening recommendation for Ubuntu would be securing the server by using SSH or Secure Shell. When using Ubuntu, most users will remotely connect to the server, and using a password may not be secure, as hackers may try to use brute force or dictionary attacks to access the server's information. By installing SSH to harden the server, users will now connect to an SSH server and have to use key authentication in order to log in. The keys are made up of public keys and private keys. Public keys will encrypt the data to make sure that it's secure, and private keys are shared between the sender and receiver. Private keys are more secure than typical passwords and are less likely to be exploited. A firewall is defined as a part of a computer system or network which is designed to block unauthorized access while permitting outward communication. With all the tasks that are completed using these servers, keeping them functioning in tip-top shape is of the utmost importance. If these servers are not properly secured, it can result in the loss of confidential information or even a complete takeover of a server, which would present an enormous problem for an organization. To protect these servers, the main line of defense are firewalls. Firewalls are used to monitor incoming and outgoing network traffic based on the rules set by system administrators. For Microsoft Server 2019, the firewall that is used is Windows Firewall. Each Windows operating system comes with Windows Firewall preloaded onto the system, and rules are set in place based on the type of network connection, private or public, that a user has and will change along with the type of connection. Windows Firewall is very user-friendly with a dedicated GUI or graphical user interface that allows for simple click and select options. Administrators are able to set rules and exceptions for each program and application on the server and decide whether to block or allow access to different services. For instance, administrators would be able to create rules for inbound and outbound connections and do things such as deciding to block or allow traffic for anything using a certain protocol. To harden Windows Firewall is to harden your rules for the firewall. There are vendor products that users may choose to protect their firewalls even more, but properly setting the rules on Windows Firewall will make a large difference. Windows Firewall comes with the Server 2019 operating system, but the rules more than likely are not set to the specifications that security administrators may want. For instance, an organization may configure their firewalls to restrict remote access to certain users on a certain type of connection. Deciding what type of traffic to allow or block is of the utmost importance, and beyond any other method of hardening Windows Firewall will ensure that our rules are set exactly the way that security admins would like. The firewall that is used on Ubuntu 18.04 is IP tables. IP tables comes pre-installed on most iterations of Ubuntu, and if not, it's easily installed through the command line of the server. Once IP-tables is installed, it is used to monitor incoming or outgoing traffic on the network like most other firewalls. But one unique feature about IP-tables is that it does not have a GUI, meaning that administrators must be sure to have a good understanding of the command used in IP-tables before using the firewall system. IP-tables uses the filter table in the Linux kernel for packet filtering. During the packet filtering process, there is a set of 3 chains or rules that decide what to do with incoming or outgoing connections. The input chain controls the behavior of incoming packets to the server. The forward chain does just what the name suggests and forwards the packet to its next destination, and the output chain filters packets that are leaving out of the server. Now that the chain policies have been defined, the user must establish their rules for IP tables. Packets must meet the conditions of the rules, after which the user can configure IP tables to give a target of accept, which will allow the packet to pass through with no issue, to drop, which will not allow the packet to pass through, or to return, which will not allow the packet to pass through, but will send an error message back to the sending party. These features help administrators secure IP tables to the exact needs of an organization. Much like any other firewall system, the best way to harden IP tables is to configure your firewall in a way that makes all the necessary changes to transform your IP tables from the initial pre-programmed version to the specific firewall needed for your business. The first step an administrator can take is to make sure that their versions of IP tables is up to date. While this may seem like a simple thing to do, it is very important to make sure that you're using an up-to-date version to ensure that any potential vulnerabilities on older versions have been patched. Another thing that is key is to make sure that the firewall is properly configured. IP tables is set to accept all chains and does not have any rules established, which could be a large issue because any packet is able to pass through unfiltered. Changing all chain rules to drop and then configuring specific ports and services to accept incoming packets would be a much safer decision and help secure IP tables. Thank you so much for watching my video. This was a PowerPoint about operation systems and firewalls, and these are my references. Goodbye, world.